And was it a constant intrusive thought? Was the food and was it always on your mind? Though,
yeah.
Always, right?
Always.
It seemed as though you didn't have a moment of peace.
Yeah, but I gotta say, I feel like, I mean, it was definitely heightened during the time when I was underweight and anorexic, but I think that food has always been on my mind since I started my first diet. I really do. I think from the age of 12, I have always been on a diet. I've either successfully dieted or I've fallen off the wagon and had a binge or been eating bad food, but I was always conscious of either being good or being bad. And so food was really consumed my mind for my entire life. And, I kind of, I want people to read the book and understand that you don't have to live like that. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter how much weight you think you have to lose. You don't have to worry every single day about what to eat. I mean, it says, like, there's a study that says 80% of women in this country have trouble eating.
Yeah.
They have trouble just making decisions every single day of what to eat, and that's really tragic because we should be focused on other things, like our careers, our families, like things that make us happy rather than diets, which ultimately make us very insecure.
Wow. You don't talk in the book about how you got over this. It's like you talk about the sickness, and then you talk about, the joy and the love of Ellen and how that's really helped heal your heart and soul. But how were you able to stop?
I am sorry that you got that from the book because I remember writing it, and I went back to my eating disorder therapist, and I said, I want to be able to show the entire journey, how I got into it and then how I got out of it, because I wanted to kind of guide people out of it. But the thing is, it's really hard to explain. It's one of those things where, the light switches on in your head and you realize that you just can't continue killing yourself. You can't continue living the way that you have been if you want to have any kind of life at all.
And what was the impetus for that? Or did it just was it love, truly?
No, I collapsed on the set of a movie.
Oh.
I blacked out in the makeup chair, and the medic came to me, and I basically was out of control at that point. I had to go to doctors. I had to get blood tests. And they came back with all kinds of diagnoses that made me terrified. I mean,
but that ultimately were not true. Like they said you had lupus, right?
Right. They said I had lupus, and it was a misdiagnosis. In fact, all I really had to do was eat, and my body just kind of readjusted itself and became healthy again, which is very rare because a lot of people that have done what I've done to my body have, lasting illness. But yeah, I mean, I was so sick, Rosie. I was in so much pain. I kind of had to start eating just to feel better. And the minute that I started eating, I gained weight immediately, which was my greatest fear. Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized that anorexia kind of served me in a way, because at 82 pounds, I didn't have to deal with my sexuality. Mm. And when I started eating again, I realized I could be just as invisible if I was overweight. So I ate myself up to 168 pounds.
Which is, again, my goal weight, but go ahead.
Yeah.
That's okay. Well, I mean, everyone's different. Listen, it's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it was not the right weight for my body.
Right, and did you have self-loathing at that point, too?
My gosh.
You did. So you went from being underweight to, in your mind, being overweight, and the self-loathing continued.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was my worst-case scenario, really. I mean, everything that I'd been trying to control, everything that I thought was crucial for me to have a career and to be happy, I just lost, and I'd become this overweight person for me, and I hated myself. I wasn't anywhere near healthy, and I think that's the other thing too, is when you regain some weight after being anorexic, I think people think you're fine.
Yes, that it's over.
That it's over. Right. You're 130 pounds, you look healthy, you're done, you're fine.
But the loop is still playing in your head.
Yeah, of course. Right. And it's, I kind of, I had the same disorder. I just would then overeat, binge eat. I would spend just as much time thinking about food as I did when I was anorexic.
So in a way, when you met Ellen, which was at your height of your weight issues,
Right.
that you fell in love then, and in a way it did sort of heal the eating disorder because No, it didn't. Oh.
It didn't, because I met her at my highest weight. But I remember thinking that she was the most amazing woman on earth, but I just didn't even, I couldn't imagine being with her. I mean, she was the most famous lesbian
ever
in the world,
right.
and I thought, I'm closeted and I'm fat, and there's no way I could be with her. So it took actually 3 years after that until we met each other again at an event and got together.
And so in that 3-year time, you had found a way to deal with food in a non-toxic way.
In that 3-year period, I was in therapy. It was a very slow recovery, and it really did take 3 years before I felt like food was something that I didn't have to think about every second of the day. And that's because I allowed myself to eat everything that I wanted. I didn't restrict any food at all. And the minute that I stopped restricting and labeling foods as good and bad was the minute that I actually went back down to my normal weight, the weight that I've always returned to, which is 130 pounds.
Right.
And I accepted that weight for the weight that I'm supposed to be, and I'm that weight now, and I probably always will be. And I just won't ever diet ever again. I won't do it. Not for my wedding day, not to be on a talk show. I'm just never going to diet again.
You know, it's so funny because it's so hard for people who look normal or average, like me, to think that a gorgeous, beautiful woman like you would ever have self-esteem issues. And I know it's so unfair to say that because everyone is, but it's hard to imagine that you could ever feel, even fat or.
Well, first of all, thank you. But, I think that's the thing. It doesn't matter how the world sees you. It's how you see yourself that's important.
Right.
And you got to remember that at 12 years old, I saw myself as somebody who wasn't quite as good as the model who was working the same job as I was.
Right.
I wasn't quite as thin. I wasn't quite as beautiful. And so, from very early on, I've just kind of been crossing my fingers and hoping to get away with it, whatever that meant.
Right.
Hoping that I was pretty enough at a certain angle, or I could take one good picture, or, I was attractive enough to keep my job. But I think the thing that I didn't realize is that, from a very early age, I was taught that what I looked like was more important than what I thought or what I did and who I was. And so there was so much emphasis on how I looked, and so my entire self-esteem was kind of wrapped around it when I didn't even really like how I looked. So, of course, I was always going to be insecure. And I think that for anybody whose self-esteem is kind of attached to how they look, they are going to have a pretty miserable life. And I think sometimes people who are perceived beautiful or attractive, I think that they're the people rushing out to get plastic surgery, and they're the ones that have this deep-seated insecurity because it's fleeting. You can't.
Yeah, and it's because what they have been valued for, and they think, what if that goes away? What is my worth? Right, of course it will. What is my worth? Every wave hits the shore eventually.
Of course.